Hello and welcome to the Tarkus Zone. Thank you for joining me. Today we're playing the game Meet Your Maker and we're going to be talking about the Enforcer. Now I just recently did a video on the Sentinel and I figured I'd just move through the groups of guards and traps and do them one at a time and just talk to you about the actual asset in the game and how it is used, how I've used it in the game. Now, if you've been following my channel, you have seen that I get some amazing kill ratios in my bases. And I do a lot of monsters. I always cap my bases off with the guards. I mean, if it allows for 20 of them, I put 20 in. And the Enforcer is what I consider a weenie mob. It's a distraction mob, but they're very effective. The best way I could say it is like in Dungeons and Dragons, you had kobolds, if you understand my reference. There's these little critters called kobolds. By themselves, they weren't very harmful to you. You know, you could take care of them real quick. But when they were in groups of 30 or 40 of them, they became overwhelming. And they just would just rip you apart, you know, just like almost like hitting a hornet's nest and having the hornets attack you. So by themselves, the Enforcer is not that effective. But let's just look at the upgrades. I want you to note right now, I've only got one upgrade to this thing. So I've been playing this game all along since launch, and I have used this asset, this guard, the Enforcer, in almost all my maps. So it tells you don't have to go silly crazy with the mods for this thing if you don't want to. Because the only mod that I have for the thing is Dead Man Switch, and I'm going to explain that to you moving forward. The plating didn't make any sense to me because in most times they're going to do a headshot anyway with these things because you're going to use the bow to take them out. So the little headshot, especially if you're pairing with Dead Man Switch, part of the thing is you want them to die, so you don't want to make it too hard for them to die. I would never use short leash, and I'm going to explain to you why, because how I use them is pretty much different than other people uses them. And then the optical implant doesn't make any sense to me because I know their range. Their range, I believe, are pretty superior. I don't need bloodlust on them because I don't use them in a traditional way. And the reflex manipulation, that might actually make sense. I've not used it all that much. I usually pair this mod with my my Hornets and my Cannonback. So if I have those mobs on the map, the Cannonbacks and the Hornets, I tend to put this mod on them. Not to say I don't think it'd be effective for this mob. I imagine it would be, but I've not used it up till now, and I've been very successful in my maps. Now the reflex manipulation increases the firing rate. If you're familiar with the bloodlust, if this mod is on this critter, it will go to wherever another mob has seen the player, so he runs to battle. The optical implant allows them to see further away, and the short leash forces them not to move a certain amount of squares. I think it's almost 1.5 blocks for where it was paths, so it won't go outside of that. I don't use them in that way. I don't use them for pathing. Dead Man Switch, I think, is OP for these guys. And the plating, like I said, I wouldn't do it. I would rather put that on. You spend those points putting that on another mob that I want to stay alive longer. It's just, I guess it's just my style of play. But I want you to know that you can use these things and not have to buy all the mods for them or even mod them out in general. So one of the things that I like to do with them is I use them like a tower defense game. And most of my maps, when I create my fascia for my maps, all look the same. And I put this angle piece in. And this little angle piece allows you to put that Enforcer right at the top of it. And if you put Dead Man Switch on, then what's going to happen is when that enforcer dies, it's going to flop down here and going to kill the raider if they're standing here. I cannot tell you how many times this setup right here has worked killing people that have gone into my outposts. And what I like to do with them is put them at the beginning of an outpost. If people walking right into my outpost, this would be a good place to put them. And if you're putting them up there on a blind spot, all right, they're going to shoot through this corner piece, but 9 times out of 10, the aiming with your bow at that sharp, people don't do it. They'll jump up there, and because of the angles, they're harder to hit. So what people will do is they'll jump up here, and by putting the dead man switch on these guys, they jump up not realizing that they're up there with a dead man switch. They hit it with a sword, or they just jump up here and hit it with the weapon, because the angle is hard to shoot. They're going to shoot. Those enforcers will shoot into this cubby. Now, I would not suggest, if I put a mob here, to put dead man switch on it, because it'd be useless, because the person's going to shoot that mob from right here, and then it's going to flop down, and the dead man switch is going to go off, and it's not going to be very you're just wasting capacity. You're wasting a mod, because that guy's going to just flop down there. So when you're using dead man switch, you want to use it in blind spots where you're forcing the person to jump up, or they're in a tunnel situation where the guy's not there. Let's just say we're going down this hall, and if this was you would have to have the hallway would have to be 2 blocks high for it to work. So you'd need to make sure that you have enough room in the hallway, height-wise, for this to work. All right. So let's say here, let's say I put this one on an angle. So there, it's a blind spot, right? It's a blind spot. So it's really hard to shoot up there. And if I do shoot up there, because it's a blind spot, they're within dead man switch range. So if I put the dead man switch on this guy, and it's in that blind spot, so I'm coming down this hallway. I mean, I could shoot him with a ranged weapon, then he's gonna flop right down on top of me, or I can jump up there, and then if I'm still up there, or if I hit him and then jump down myself, he's gonna follow me to the floor. And how it would look as the closed off version of it, that's what it would look like. So you'd be coming down the hallway here, and what's nice is if you don't see him and you try to walk by him, he'll step a foot forward and he'll hit you. You could be right here and he'll still hit you. He'll shoot you through that little gap that he can see through there. But that's a prime example of dead man switch combo. So if you're putting them out to get dead man switch, this is how you do it. You do it in a blind spot where the person's close. I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt if you wanted to, if you didn't want to take the chance to not have the dead man switch go off, that you could put them on an angle here. But the thing with this is they're just easier to shoot if you put them there. It's not such a blind spot. You can put them on this angle like this, and then when they die, they'll flop into the center. But I think, they'd just be it'd be like you shoot them and then the person will just back up. So I think that won't really work. They got to be above them to force them to go up to them. And Also, another good way, so I wouldn't recommend doing that unless they're in the air, you're forcing the person to go up. The other way that it works really well is if the mob is behind the player with the dead man switch on. And let me just set that up here. So if they come in and I do I do this, let's say, all right, and then this this is capped here like this. All right. Oop. Some capacity there. All right. So this way they come into they come in, and let's pretend this is an open concept, or the room's a little bigger, just a little open concept area. So if you put them up there, the person will either need to zing up there to kill them with the sword or shoot them. But the thing about it, by shooting them, they're going to flop down with the dead man switch. And the thing about it is, in most cases, they're not moving forward because you've got other things going on in the room. So they're cautiously coming in. They're dealing with what's in front of them. And then they're either going to get killed by what's firing behind them. Actually, in this case, I would get rid of the center one. And then they're like, oh crap, I got somebody behind me shooting. And normally they'll take a bow out and they'll shoot the enforcer, or they'll zip line up to get them. But normally they jump right back down to the ground because of whatever nonsense you might still have in the room. So they jump up quickly, then jump down, not realizing that these guys are on dead man switch. So these are the situations where I've used them, and they're devastating. They're just crazy effective. Doing it, the example I'm giving you is just crazy effective, and then obviously the room would be closed off like that. You know, just like that. So when they come in, you know, they're dealing with stuff that's in the room. And in this case, what I would do is, this is a perfect, I don't need that one there. And then actually this roof would have to, just for line of sight, I would make the roof like that so that those guys can see. So if you get in deep, they can get you in the back. They can shoot you in the back. So in this situation, and I want to also point out, when it comes to crossfire, if you're not using the enforcer with the dead man switch and you're using them as a normal mob, I don't path them. The only mobs that I path are my hornets. I use the enforcer as a tower defense. That's how I use them. I've always used them that way. They've been really effective using them that way. And people think I'm nuts that, Tarkus, you've never pathed an enforcer, and I'm like, no, I've never even thought about pathing them, because they work so well. If you've played any other tower defense game in your life, actually, you want to face those. Now, if you want to use less capacity, you have them not face Harvey's path. If you actually have them face away from Harvey's path, they take less capacity, but how you do it and have them be effective, I don't know. So in this situation, I would not be using dead man switch on these guys because they're part of my crossfire. So I'm going to come in here and those guys are going to fire at me. Now, when you're using them for crossfire or shooting, you want to use them in pairs of 3. But meaning there should be 3 mobs per enforcer or within a group of the enforcers. So this is one short. So, but if you consider that hornet as a hornet right there. If you had, if I had pathed this hornet into this room, which I'll do now just for the sake of my explanation. Okay. So I've got okay. So in this situation, it meets the rule of 3. There's 3 mobs right there in front of me. You don't include the dead man switch mobs. These guys are not because when you're looking at the crossfire or you're looking for or mobs to litter the field to get the raiders' attention, you don't count these. These are just bonus mobs that will get them as they move in. But when you're looking at actual mobs that are firing directly at them, you want to pair them in 3 like I have here. Now what I normally do, if I have capacity or if it's working, if it's going to work for me, I always like to work with these guys with with at least 1 sentinel, and I put that sentinel so that it has direct range to the door. And a lot of times I won't put it that low. I'll put it up there. So you want it at least 1 block higher than, and you always want to put plasma cloud on it, always. So here, as they dip in, they have to deal with this guy. Now, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to shoot at that because that's priority, because it's got the plasma cloud. They know it's got the plasma, so they're going to shoot. Well, that's 1 round that's now in the room. So if they're using the ranged weapon that destroys traps, they usually got 3 rounds. So that's 1 that you've taken away from them. Well, guess what? I still got 3 other mobs on the map. And so if they shot this guy and shot this guy, all 3 of their rounds are now in the room, and I still have the Hornet to handle them. That's why I'm saying pairs of 3, because you got to look at trying to exhaust their weaponry and force them to go retrieve their weapons. Now, also, I like to pair the Enforcer always with at least 1 cannon back. And you can put that cannon back. I like to put them behind the Enforcer so they're not the first mob that the person's going to shoot at. So I guess the other thing I should tell you about the Enforcer is it's always it might be good to use them as patsy guards. You expect them to die. I mean, I guess let's say a whole point with the dead man switch on them is you expect them to die. I always put the optical implant on these guys in reflex, always with these guys, with the cannonbacks, because they're behind my Enforcers. So I use the Enforcers as my trash mobs. I guess that's how you would call them, is trash mobs, meaning that I'm expecting them to die. I want them to die. I want them to eat up the person's ammo. But in this situation, that cannonback's way back there. But that cannonback can zing me from right where I'm standing. Right on. So this setup that you see here is a devastating setup. Now, obviously, the pathing for the Hornet needs this mob here needs to be changed because I put that block there. See the red line? So I just zing him around like this, zing him around. Always when you do your Hornets, make them erratic so that the person coming into your building is not just seeing them stop and then hitting them with their weapon. So you always make them, because they can miss them. So make sure that when you get your Hornet going, make sure that Hornet's zinging around real good. In case they're trying to shoot that Hornet, they might miss them, and that's 1 round wasted. And see how well that looks right now? You got the Hornet that comes out, flies in front of the Enforcers, almost giving the Enforcers protection as it flies in front of them. And what's going to happen is that Hornet's going to aggro the person coming in. So it's going to stay in the front. So that Hornet will stay in the front. These guys will crossfire here. The guy's going to dip in. They're going to try to retrieve their weaponry by their bullets when they start knocking these guys out. And guess what? Then they got these guys coming down on them, raining fire. And then they're going to I got to shoot these guys. And they're going to shoot these guys. They're going to flop into the room with the dead man switch and lights out. I mean, this is a cool combination of trap placement, and I've been very effective with this trap placement. And as you can see, I've used 4 Enforcers to pull this off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you count the 1 outside. Now, just so that we can test this, so you can see, and I'm not the best the tester in the world, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with the dead man switch. Whoop, I gotta get out of here. Or okay, see, as I said, the the Sentinel is blocking. Oh, I forgot about that guy. I'm gonna get some coffee in here. Forgot that I had that guy up there, but that's the guy I wanted to test with the dead man switch. See how he flops down? And as I come in here, I can shoot, and that thing blocks the door on me. See that? But it also gives, see that cannon back is rolling those bombs all the way down here. And the great thing about this setup is it basically holds you here, and it gives them time to recharge their weapons. So every time I peek around, they're ready to shoot again, and that's what happens. Is they're just firing, and as I peeked around the corner, he hit me with a bullet he had already sent, and he got me. He already fired it, and I walked right into it. So that's it in a nutshell, folks. I mean, the way I look at it when it comes to the Enforcer, I use them like a tower defense mob, and that's just the way I like to. So yeah, I mean, you go to walk back in thinking that they're done shooting at you, and it's just not the case. So just to finish the video, we'll go look at the mob one more time, or the guard within this interface here. And as you can see, the upgrades, you can probably, like I said, you could increase their firing rate. That probably wouldn't hurt. And their increase the Enforcer's firing rate, and this one's movement speed. So I don't really need the movement speed one because I don't move them. I do like a tower defense, like I was saying. So increases the firing rate is the one you want to go with, if I didn't say that before. All the other ones, I guess, would be okay. But again, I wouldn't do the optical implant because I usually push them forward and have my cannon backs behind them. And it's the cannon back that I give the ocular implant to. The short leash wouldn't make any sense to me for my usage because I use them as a tower. Always put them on the top of a tower so they're not roaming. They can't get off the tower. They can't go anywhere. And that's the thing about it is, I should have mentioned that if you put the Enforcer on the ground, it will move around. So if it sees the person running around, it will actually go after the person and move around. When you fix them on top of a block with no pathing opportunity, they never move. So they're trapped there. So they're not going to move around on you. Because a lot of times a raider will gimp it. They'll go in and see that the mob will be doing his pattern. And the mob will see the guy, and the person will just leave the outpost and go outside. And the mob follows them outside, and then one by one they shoot them. And that's the problem with doing that with the Enforcer is the Enforcer stupid as nuts. He'll just follow the guy out, and because it's a ranged weapon and it's kind of slow, the person's just picking them off as he's kiting them basically out of the building. So when I use them, there's no kiting mechanism because I put them on towers, top of towers. So if you want them dead, you've got to go to them. You can't kite them out of the room. All right. Well, I think that really sums it up on how I use this type of guard, and I hope this video was helpful to you. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been the Tarkus Zone.